الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد. This is our second session on the story of fiqh, and we gave a short introduction last time, specifically about the matter of intention, and I stress this again. Knowledge is to be sought only for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's only to be sought for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we don't want to keep the word for the sake of Allah vague, because with overuse sometimes it becomes, for some people, redundant. So you need to find out exactly why you are coming to this class. How does it connect you to Allah? How does it help your relationship with purpose? That everything you do it for a purpose. You're aware of the purpose you're doing it. So it's not random, it's not out of habit. This is how it becomes an act of worship for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Otherwise, it could become problematic. You don't want to be on autopilot, you're just doing things, you think you're doing them for the sake of Allah, then on the day of judgment, you're surprised when you see that in your records it's not actually for the sake of Allah, it was not. And the fact that you did not invest enough to understand or unravel the reality of your intention is such a problematic issue. You need to make sure that you understand what it means for the sake of Allah. So is this, or you're coming to this halaqah, to this class, the time you're spending, the effort you're putting in, the time you spend reading and researching and going back to the reference, and learning and probably memorizing and doing some effort, what is the motivation behind it? What is the why behind it? That's what intention actually means. It means motivation, in simple words. As well, like sometimes people still want to be stuck in certain words. They say, okay, niyyah means intention. But with overuse, sometimes we don't realize what words really mean. Intention, niyyah, means your motive, your motivation. Your desire. What is your desire that pushes you to come to this class? What's your motivation? What is this? That's what niyyah is. That's what intention is. The reason you came to this halaqah, to this class. So there's no politics about it. It's so simple, so straightforward. If you unravel it, understand it, you're in a good position. If you don't, you keep it vague, you're playing a very risky game. The reason we are studying this topic is actually today is very important in the light of, first I would say, the rampant differences among the Muslims that have divided the Muslims. The Muslims, unfortunately, today seem to be searching for any difference among them in order to make an issue about it, and to sometimes create cults around certain issues and to separate themselves from each other. But understanding, fiqh sometimes is used as an excuse. Fiqh differences. So sometimes you hold on to an opinion, or you take the opinion of a certain scholar, and for you that's the truth and the ultimate truth. Someone else follows another scholar, and that scholar has their own opinion, their own ijtihad that's based on evidence, and for you, your shaykh's opinion is the ultimate truth. And then you start taking stances against that person because they do not follow the opinion that you hold on to. So because of these issues, it's important to understand what fiqh really means. And what is the history of fiqh? Was this the case at the time of the Prophet ﷺ? Was it the time at the Khulafa al-Rashidun, or afterwards? How did fiqh evolve and grow into the shape that we know today? Was it always the same? Was it always the same shape, the same kind of structure? Or did it go through different phases and stages until it reached the level we are in? Fiqh as we know it, is it divine? Is it divine in origin? Does it have divine qualities? Or is it a human effort? These are big questions that we need to understand. Sometimes people are unable to tell the difference between an opinion, a fiqhi opinion or a fiqhi matter, okay, and a divine legislation. Some people think they are one and the same. That's it. So if you disagree with them on something, or if you don't take their advice on a matter and you follow the advice of someone else or another scholar, for them you have rejected the Hadith. You have rejected the verse from the Qur'an. So they will come to you with a matter, and I remember like one day, since this happened, and I like to bring examples that happened to me, maybe happened to one of you, or something that we all know about, because we can relate to these matters better. One day I was praying the Jama'ah here, I was leading the prayer. After the Jama'ah, during the Jama'ah I heard some voice, some people arguing, talking, in the second or third rak'ah. And I thought, who talks in this manner? Like there was a proper conversation taking place and was audible. I could hear it when I was praying. And it's just like said, who would like talk? And it seems like adults, not children. They were talking. Who would talk? And they're right behind the Imam in the second line. So after the Salah, I sat down and I was making tasbih. So people were just making up the rak'ahs they missed. A person approaches me and he said, we just came, I just came in the middle of the Salah, and the first row was almost complete. There was a spot for one person. When I walked in, there was another person with me. And he pointed at the person who was next to him in the second row, who was making his tasbih now. And the other person saw that person asking me the question and pointing at him. And he could almost hear what was said. I realized there was tension. So he said to me, so we walked in, and I wanted to just pray. Or I told the brother, you take that spot and I will stand in this, I will initiate the second row. And he said, no, you can't do this, that's haram. Your prayer will be invalid. And he saw that's the argument that happened. So they kept arguing for a few seconds, maybe roughly saying 30 seconds. Then the guy pushed him into or sort of bullied him into standing in this second line and leaving that spot. So he said to me, is that right? I said, okay, brother, you need to calm down. It's not about the situation that happened between you and that brother. There's a general case in fiqh, we can talk about it. So I told him, there's a matter of disagreement among the scholars. Okay, there's a matter of disagreement among the scholars. If you come and there's no place in the first row or the second row, and you have to initiate a new row by yourself, can you do this? Is your prayer valid? There's a hadith from the Prophet ﷺ. That's why I told the brothers. There's a hadith from the Prophet ﷺ. لا تصح صلاة الفذ أو الفرد خلف الصف وحده. The salah or the prayer of the one singular person behind the line or the row is invalid. That's the hadith. And this is why this example shows us the importance of studying the history of fiqh. So I told the brother, there's a disagreement among the scholars about the meaning of this hadith. So some scholars say, actually, if you have no other option, the first row, the second row is complete, you have to initiate a new row, you can be by yourself if there's no one else. Some scholars said, no, you have to leave that spot and initiate a new line. So he said, what if I come by myself and the first row is full and I have to initiate a new row? What should I do? I said, some scholars say you have to drag someone from the first row and bring them back. That's the most common among people. All right? So that's an opinion there. I can't say it's wrong. But many of the scholars say this is inappropriate because you are sort of interrupting someone's prayer, someone's focus, and you're dragging them. And you are creating a hole or a gap in a complete line. And the Prophet ﷺ prohibited this. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Man wasala saffan, wasalahu Allah." Whoever connects a line, when there's a gap, so he bridges the gap, wasalahu Allah. So Allah will connect him or connect with him. وَمَنْ قَطَعَ صَفًّا قَطَعَهُ اللَّهُ. The Prophet ﷺ said, whoever creates a gap in a row or in a complete line, then Allah will disconnect him. And that's a serious matter. So which hadith should you follow? See? So when I said this, the other guy who was sitting there, now he became more involved. And he said, what's the difference of the scholars? So I was shocked and I said, brother, sorry, I'm not talking to you. He's asking a question, I'm answering his question. And he was very aggressive in his approach. He said, the Prophet ﷺ said, no one should pray by himself behind the line. Otherwise his prayer is invalid. I said, okay, brother, calm down. This is an issue of disagreement among the scholars. He said, what disagreement when the Prophet ﷺ has made it clear? I said, brother, calm down. I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to this brother. He said, no, answer my question. I said, I don't answer a question when you ask in such a manner. You need to ask politely, and I'll answer. He said, I'm polite. I said, mashallah, if this is polite. I said, brother, I don't want to talk to you at this moment. Please, let me explain. He said, I told you the Prophet said, and you were just saying scholars. Which scholars? You didn't even name scholars. That's the kind, by the way, this does not happen to me. That happens all the time with almost everyone. You often face people like this or come across people like this. Now, this is not an issue, a reason to put the brother down, because that's the limit of his knowledge. That's the limit of his knowledge. But it's probably sometimes these issues, fiqhi issues, cause this kind of disagreement, sometimes fights, animosity among Muslims. This was just a simple kind of situation. But what about when this assumes, like a higher level of political issues among Muslims? Like, for example, issues of halal chicken. There are scholars who made something about halal. Okay, if it's slaughtered this way, fine. Alhamdulillah, if the name of Allah is mentioned anyway, it's halal. Someone doesn't agree to this opinion. He goes to a masjid and he says, the chicken you're eating is all haram. Just like that. And like almost everyone in this masjid eats that kind of chicken. It's haram. No, but scholars, have another opinion. No, it's haram. What you're eating is haram. And this is a very sensitive issue with Muslims, right? You can't say this. You can't say this, especially when there are scholars and very well-versed scholars who know what they're talking about, and they've studied this matter and they issued a ruling there. So if you don't understand how fiqh evolved and you think the opinion of your scholar is the divine statement from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it's the one and only truth, that's when issues among Muslims happen. And the Prophet ﷺ was very careful. And by the way, you'll find me stressing this again and again, besides attention. This is another issue. It's just because I can see it has brought a lot of negativity, a lot of animosity among Muslims, and the sense of brotherhood sometimes is sacrificed and compromised because of issues like these. We seem to have a very strong desire to be right instead of being kind. So I don't mind putting my brother down, violating him, disrespecting him, looking down upon him, just to prove my opinion right, and I feel good about myself, and his opinion is wrong. And this is a kind of attitude which I like to call, I'm right, you're wrong, we both lose. That's how it is. Because we're losing, our whole community is losing. And we're unable to attend to challenges we're facing on a daily basis. Some of our teenagers, some of our youth are leaving Islam and doubting Islam, and some of them are going into serious problems when we can't even understand how to deal with differences among the scholars because of our misunderstanding of what fiqh really is. So when we understand the story of fiqh and the history and the evolution of fiqh, we'll be in a better position to handle these issues and know what is divine and what is human in this process. So we stick to what is divine and we accommodate what's human. So another reason why we actually are studying this kind of topic is the confusion as well that many Muslims have when they see the differences among the scholars. Sometimes these differences are quite sharp. Like, this is halal, no, it's haram. This is halal, this is haram. There's no way, okay, it could be haram and halal at the same time, right? So how can we handle these issues? We will see. Inshallah, we will see, and we will learn from the Prophet ﷺ and his companions. Once we understand the nature of fiqh and how it evolved, we will be able to see why these differences exist and whether they have good reasons to exist and how we can handle them without compromising our Muslim brotherhood and sense of community and love for one another. And one of the reasons we're studying this topic as well is the overly strict approach that some Muslims display towards matters of disagreement among the scholars. Some people take one side, and as I said, that's for them, that's the truth. Everything else is falsehood. And they're quite adamant, and they speak to others quite in a condescending fashion. Another reason is the often newly practicing Muslims or new Muslims altogether. They face this kind of confusion because once they start learning Islam, Jazakallah khair. Once they start learning Islam, someone tells them that's right, someone tells them no, that's wrong. This is how you do this. No, someone else tells this is how you do that. They thought what Islam was one thing because that's a quite simplistic approach. Because these people were either born Muslims, but they did not have Islamic education. They did not realize the diversity and the differences among the scholars. And this is something that we have to learn how to live with. And it's actually, to a certain extent, it's a healthy phenomenon. To a certain extent, it's a healthy phenomenon. Or a new Muslim who thought that Muslims were all on one word in everything. But that's impossible in anything. Even people on the same team, they don't agree on all matters. It's a human phenomenon to have differences and disagreements. Also, seeing and understanding fiqh and some of these principles will become apparent as we study fiqh. You will see the mercy and the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and how He sent down the message to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and how He subhanahu wa ta'ala made principles there for us to be guided by, and how these principles allow some space for us, and this gives Islam the adaptability and the universality, where Islam can really be implemented in any situation and with every nation, in every place on earth. This gives Islam its universality and its flexibility and adaptability, yet maintaining its own principles and uniqueness. And also, when we study this topic, some of the hidden aspects of Islam will be shown. And these beautiful aspects and dynamics are the fiqh. There's a beautiful system behind fiqh. Beautiful. Fiqh is very systematic. Very systematic. It's a beautiful science. It's profound, dynamic, and very well organized. Very well organized. And you will see the contributions of our scholars are really great and amazing. How they build this body of knowledge around the texts and around the Islamic principles. So these aspects, inshallah, will be clarified as well. And we will also touch on something like every now and then, which is the two kind of extremes, the conflicting or dichotomous extremes, which is the strict blind following of the madhahib, like taking that's madhab, that's Islam, anything else is not. That kind of blind following of a madhab is one extreme. The other extreme is a complete disregard of the madhab. A complete disregard of the madhab and the contributions of the Muslim scholars. This is another extreme. Both of them should be avoided. The truth is actually somewhere in the middle, and inshallah we will clarify it. So I want to start with a question. First, who managed to download the book, The Evolution of Fiqh by Abu Amin Abil Phillips? Put your hands up. By a show of hands, can I see? Okay, so please, those who haven't done that yet, download the book of Abu Amin Abil Phillips, The Evolution of Fiqh. It's available. If you Google it, the first few websites that will pop up on the top, they will have it for free. You can download it for free. And his, I believe, online university as well offered the book, I believe, for free as well. So you can go to their website, check it there. So the book is available online. You can get a soft copy. It's by the author himself as well. So he condoned that copy to be online. The Evolution of Fiqh by Abu Amin Abil Phillips. It's quite a good framing effort. It does frame the issue, puts it within a very nice systematic frame, and is very helpful for us to deal with. So, okay, that's the first question. Second question, there was a homework to read the first 20 pages. Who read the first 20 pages? Okay, and sisters? Okay, good. Please try to do this, because, by the way, I'm gonna follow some kind. It won't be that. Let me explain a little bit about the methodology. I will not be teaching everything. Some of the burden is on you to read, and it's only one textbook. Like, I didn't get you 5-6 textbooks, and till you go and read and bring a summary, okay, and just make a couple of comments and move on. I'm not gonna be so liberal, but I will leave some of the matters with you, and I will be assuming that you have read that assignment, so I can build on that, and we can talk about something. I would say we can build on it instead of using the time just to start from scratch. Okay, so please, Every time you need to read. You need to read the assignment. You need to read the assignment. So for next week, the assignment is the same. The first 20 pages plus you need to finish he talks about the first period or the first phase of fiqh, which is the life of the Prophet ﷺ. So you need to finish until the end of that. And that would be on that copy, page, it's going to be quite a bit this time. Let me see, what will this be? That's quite a bit, guys. Okay. So the ones who did not read the first 20 pages will actually have a double burden today. Until page 45. Till page 45 on the copy that's available online. It's the same copy. Okay, that talks about the first phase of the evolution of fiqh, or the story of fiqh, and that's basically the Meccan period, or the period of the Prophet, at the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, the ones who read, can you tell me what fiqh is? What's the meaning of fiqh? What's the definition of fiqh? It doesn't have to be specific, by the way. I don't believe in a specific kind of definition. If you have show a good understanding in your definition, that's enough, inshallah. Even in the exam, if you have a good definition and you seem to show good grasp through your definition, that's enough. So it's not a school kind of approach. Yes, please.
It's the deeper understanding of the Sharia. I'm trying to deduce from the principles that came through the Qur'an and the Sunnah, ruling on new matters.
Okay, so it's a deeper understanding of Sharia. Did anyone catch this? A deeper understanding. So it's not any understanding, it's a deeper understanding of Sharia. And by the way, this is the linguistic definition. The technical definition is the second part the brother said. And sorry, brother, your name? Muhammad. Brother Muhammad, the second segment of his definition is basically deducing the rulings of Sharia, or the fiqhi rulings, from the textual evidence, right? Deducing. Okay, we'll come to this. Does anyone have another definition of fiqh? There are other definitions that we can use, yes? Wasiyullah.
Human effort involved in understanding the text of the Qur'an and the Sunnah in order to deduce their application on human.
Okay, the human effort to understand the Qur'an and the Sunnah, to deduce applications from these texts for the application of humans, right? For humans. Why did you say human effort?
Because some of it involves like thought, human effort, for example, ijtihad. Some matters are not completely clear. There's some new matters that come up in human life. Like a human who is at that proficiency in that qualification has to put in his effort to understand.
So there's a human element in it. The human element is using thought. Using thought. For someone who's got the tools, someone who's qualified to do ijtihad, there's a human effort to understand, have a deeper understanding of the texts, and extract from them rulings and applications for new matters. Okay? So this is an important kind of differentiation. So anyone has another kind of contribution to the meaning of fiqh?
It says what the fiqh is human reasoning.
Human reasoning. Reasoning in the Arabic language, today Arabs call it tafkir. Okay? The old Arabs call it fikr. Al-fikr. Okay. So fikr is different. It might be used in fiqh, but fiqh itself is not reasoning. Reasoning plays a role in fiqh, but it's not reasoning. Do you have another part you wanted to continue? Or was it? Okay, that was it. Okay, sisters, any contribution from the sisters? So I prove I'm not biased to the brothers. Sisters, any definitions? Any contribution?
Assalamu alaikum.
Salam to Allah.
It reaches out to the and Sharia comprises of the laws unfolded in both the Quran and the Sunnah, which are unchanging. Fiqh reaches out the laws to treat situations and circumstances as necessary, as we can learn from the history of Fiqh. Fiqh can be categorized thus under 6 major stages of development.
What's the last bit?
Naim, Jazima, Naim.
Okay. Let me take it. Jazakallah khair. Jazakallah khair. Let's take the word fiqh. Okay, let's start defining it in the Arabic language. Fiqh, for example, fiqh. We know this in the story of Musa. Let's see, the Arabs use fiqh for meaning to understand, to comprehend, to grasp. That's what fiqh means. The basic meaning of fiqh. Okay? The basic to comprehend, understand, to grasp. To understand something. That's what fiqh means to the Arabs, generally speaking. Okay? You will find in the Qur'an, for example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He tells the story of Musa alayhi salam in Surah Taha, قال رب اشرح لي صدري. Oh Allah, expand my chest. ويسر لي أمري and facilitate my affair. واحلل عقدة من لساني and untie a knot in my tongue. يفقه قولي, so they understand what I say. So they understand what I say. That's using the word fiqh. يفقه قولي. Because Musa alayhi salam, we know that he had an issue with his tongue, right? Because when he was a child, his tongue was burnt. So when he spoke, his speech sometimes was not clear. Certain letters did not come out clear. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commissioned him with the message, conveying the message to Fir'aun and his people, and to save the children of Israel, Musa alayhi salam asked Allah's help. And he said, وَحْلُ الْعُقْدَةً مِّن لِسَانِي, and untie this knot, this lack of clarity in my speech. يَفْقَهُ قَوْلِي, so they understand, so they comprehend my speech, what I say, what I tell them. So here the Qur'an uses يَفْقَهُ قَوْلِي, fiqh. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also, like He talks about the hypocrites. He says, فَمَا لِهَؤُلَاءِ الْقَوْمِ لَا يَكَادُونَ يَفْقَهُونَ حَدِيثًا. What's wrong with these people? لا, they do not. يفقهون, يفقه, fiqh. لا يفقهون حديثا. They do not understand any statement. These people cannot comprehend basic statements. Simple logic. They cannot comprehend, they cannot understand it, they cannot grasp it. Also we have, for example, in Surah Hud, Shu'aib, when he spoke to his people looked down upon him and they were aggressive towards him. What did they say? قالوا يا شعيب ما نفقه كثيرا مما تقول. ما نفقه, we do not understand much of what you say. We not comprehend it. We can't grasp it. قالوا يا شعيب ما نفقه كثيرا مما تقول. So this shows that fiqh in Arabic and the usage of the Quran, what does it mean? It means understanding, comprehension. Is it any kind of understanding? In a general context, yes. In a general context, yes. But, when there is some comparison, in a special context, it's known from the context, fiqh also refers to a deeper form of thinking, comprehension, a deeper form of understanding. It actually refers to a high quality understanding in certain context. So what tells you, does it mean general understanding or does it mean high quality understanding? It's the context. It is the context. So fiqh is also used in the Arabic language. So it's first one, basic one, is understanding, comprehension. Second usage of the word fiqh is actually deep understanding, high quality comprehension and grasp. So it's high quality understanding, insight. in this, it has a little bit to do with wisdom. So you might, for example, know a hadith and understand its basic meaning. You might understand its basic meaning. Let's show for example, let's give an example. Imam al-Zuhri, one of the tabi'een, was asked. He said, and by the way, like at their time, there was shortage of water. Like, it's not like they didn't have water pipes. In order to get water, they needed sometimes to travel for a few kilometers to get the water and come back. So water was in shortage. And when someone had like a bottle like this, the amount of water that's in the bottle like this, for them that was such a huge thing. And they would make wudu in probably quarter of this. The Prophet ﷺ would make a wudu in almost a third or a quarter of this. Okay? So Imam al-Zuhri was asked, someone had little water and a dog came and drank from it. We know that when the Prophet ﷺ in the hadith reported by Bukhari and Muslim, إذا ولغ الكلب في إناء أحدكم فليغسله سبعا أولهن بالتراب. If a dog drinks from your drinking water or from your drinking cup, we have to wash it 7 times, one of them with dust or with dirt, in order for it to be purified. So Imam al-Zuhri was asked, and the water becomes impure. Now Imam al-Zuhri was asked, what if someone has little water, and dog comes and drinks from it? What should he do? Should he make wudu with it or should he make tayammum? So there's no water now. This water is najis. He said no, he makes wudu with the water. Now Sufyan al-Thawri, when he heard this fatwa, he said, هذا هو الفقه. He said, this is fiqh. This is deep understanding of the hadith. So they asked him how. He said, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he talks about tayammum in Surah An-Nisa, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَمْ تَجِدُوا مَاءً. If you did not find water, you make tayammum. He says, but this is water, regardless. Who doesn't call it water? It's water. And by the way, this is an issue of disagreement. Among the scholars. So some scholars disagreed with al-Zuhri. They said, no, this water is najis, he makes tayammum. But I'm just mentioning the usage of the word fiqh. So when Imam Sufyan al-Thawri heard, or someone narrated to him the fatwa of al-Zuhri, he said, هذا هو الفقه. This is fiqh. This is proper deep understanding. There's not any understanding. So he has he knows the hidden aspects of hidden indications of this hadith. Okay, so that's what we call fiqh. And this is why the Prophet ﷺ, when he made dua, and this is in Sahih al-Bukhari, he made dua for Ibn Abbas. What did he say? Can anyone remember the hadith? Allahumma faqihhu fi d-din. Oh Allah, give him fiqh in the deen. It's not any knowledge about the deen, it's deeper understanding, deeper insight. وَعَلِّمْهُ التَّأْوِيلِ. And teach him the tafsir of the Qur'an, the interpretation of the Qur'an. So fiqh, and this is why, again, the word fiqh as well was used at the time of the Prophet ﷺ after the battle of Hunayn. After the battle of Hunayn, we know the Prophet ﷺ gave, for example, Habis ibn al-Aqra', one of the new Muslims at the time, a Bedouin, he gave him 100 camels. Another one 100 camels. He gave the people of Mecca who just recently became Muslims. And he did not give the Ansar much. He gave the Muhajirin. He did not give the Ansar much. Some of the Ansar said, even actually someone said who was not from the Ansar, and it seems to be the Khuwaysira, he said, هذه قسمة ما أريد بها وجه الله. He said, this is some kind of division of the spoils of war that is not for Allah. There is some other motives in that. He said, هذه ليست قسمة عدل. The Prophet ﷺ became angry, very angry when he heard about this. But the Prophet ﷺ heard someone from the Ansar, he said, it came to his attention that some of the Ansar said something, were complaining. So the Prophet ﷺ came to the Ansar and he said, مَا قَوْلٌ وَصَلَنِي عَنْكُمْ. What is that statement that I heard about you? So the narrator of the hadith says, فَقَالَ فُقَهَاءُ الْأَنصَارِ. So the fuqaha among the Ansar, these are the mature ones, the ones of knowledge and understanding and maturity and wisdom. قالوا أما أصحاب الرأي فينا فلم يقولوا شيئا. The ones with sound opinion among us did not say anything. But maybe the smaller ones said something. That's how they responded to the Prophet ﷺ. So the word fiqh was used to mean what? Experience in life, maturity, knowledge about religion, wisdom. You see, so it's a higher level of understanding and comprehension. So I'm sharing these things with you so you have a better fiqh of the meaning of the word fiqh. You have a better comprehension and grasp, a better taste of the word fiqh, what it means, where it came through the Arabic language, and we'll see how it evolved. So this is how it's used in the Arabic language. Also the Prophet ﷺ, in the hadith that I believe I mentioned that last week. The hadith reported from, collected by Abu Dawood, and it's also in the other Sunan. From Abbad al-Ansari, from one of the Tabi'een, through Zayd bin Thabit. He said, the Prophet ﷺ said, نَضَّرَ اللَّهُ امْرِئًا سَمِعَ مِنَّا حَدِيثًا. May Allah light the face of someone who hears a statement from me. فَبَلَّغَهُ. So he conveys it. Like he hears a hadith and he conveys it to others. فَرُبَّ حَامِلِ فِقْهٍ لَيْسَ بِفَقِيهٍ. So how often someone carries fiqh, like he carries knowledge, but he's not a faqih. He doesn't have proper understanding of it. He doesn't have deeper understanding of it. He just understands the basic meaning of it. رُبَّ حَامِلِ فِقْهٍ لَيْسَ بِفَقِيهٍ. How often there is someone who carries fiqh, he carries it because he memorized it. حَامِلِ فِقْهٍ لَيْسَ بِفَقِيهٍ. But he's not a faqih. He has not grasped it. He doesn't know the deeper meanings of it, the other indications of it, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala really intends behind it. He doesn't know this. وَرُبَّ حَامِلِ فِقْهٍ إِلَى مَنْ هُوَ أَفْقَهُ مِنْهُ. And how often someone carries a fiqh, meaning he remembers, he memorizes, like a hadith or a knowledge, to someone who has more understanding and more comprehension of it. So the Prophet ﷺ used fiqh here about deeper insight, high quality comprehension and understanding. Do you get a good grasp of the word fiqh in Arabic? Like Arabs, and like in Lisan al-Arab, one of the best books about the Arabic language and Arabic lexicon, like when he defines the word fiqh, he says, an Arab would say to you, if they explain something to you, then they would ask you, أَفَقِهْتَ كَلَامِ أَفَقِهْتَ. Did you have fiqh of my kalam, of my words? Did you understand? That's what it means. So, like in everyday language, people say, you get me, right? The Arabs were very eloquent at the time. They did not say, now today, Arabs, what would they say? فهمتني or فهمت علي, yeah? But at the time they would say, أفقهت كلامي. It's a very deep, profound, kind of style. But these are the Arabs. So fiqh means understanding and comprehension. Now, when Islam came, so the Arabs would, anyone who understood some kind of science or knowledge or art or skill, they mastered it, was called faqih. Faqih. That's among the Arabs previously. Faqih. When Islam came, the word fiqh was used exclusively for knowledge of the deen, knowledge of Islam. So once you say fiqh, automatically people understand you're talking about like knowledge of religion, of the deen, of Islam. So Islam changed the use. So the use of the word fiqh evolved when Islam came. So fiqh became knowledge of the deen, knowledge of Islam. Is it knowledge of like practical issues or applications? No. Knowledge about everything about Islam, about the Qur'an, about the Hadith, about what we call fiqh today, about aqeedah, all about tafsir, all of this was called fiqh. All of this. Understanding the issues of intention, and as the scholars say, khabaya nufus, the hidden aspects of the self. All of this was called fiqh. Like Imam Sadr al-Sharia, who's a very famous usuli, and one of the scholars of usul al-fiqh, one of his books is At-Tawdih ala At-Tanqih. he talks about fiqh when he defines it at the beginning, and he says that al-fiqh عند الصدر الأول, among the early Muslims, the Salaf, the early generations, it meant knowledge of the Book of Allah and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and knowledge of the hidden aspects of the self, and knowledge about the deen in its entirety. This is what it means. So among the early generations, which the Prophet ﷺ, the companions, probably the tabi'een, fiqh meant the general Arabic use was reduced to use exclusively for a specific meaning, which is proper understanding of Islam, of the sciences of Islam, of the knowledge of Islam, the Qur'an, the Sunnah, and everything that's involved with them. That was the evolution on the word fiqh. Something that explains this was a statement from Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu. Abdullah bin Mas'ud said, "Innakum fi zamanin." He's speaking to who? The companions and the tabi'een. He says, "Innakum fi zamanin." كثير فقهاؤه. You live in a time, كثير فقهاؤه. You have many people of understanding of the deen. You have many fuqaha. Many fuqaha. قليل قراؤه. You have very few people who've memorized the Qur'an. Very few people, little in number, who memorized Qur'an. تضيع فيه حروف القرآن, like the words of the Qur'an are not so much widely memorized and observed. وتحفظ حدوده. But the guidance of the Qur'an is maintained and observed. He's talking about the companions and the greatest among the tabi'een. ثم يأتي عليكم زمان. Then a time will come. كثير قراؤه. The ones who've memorized قراء, the one who've memorized it, will be so many. Like many people will memorize the Qur'an. قليل فقهاؤه. But the ones who understand it, the ones who understand the deen and the religion, will be very few. Very few. تحفظ فيه حروف القرآن. The words and the letters of the Qur'an will be memorized and protected. وتضيع حدوده. Whereas its meanings and its legislations and its guidance will be compromised and lost. So that's Abdullah Mas'ud. What is he? He's making a differentiation between memorization, learning something at a basic level, memorizing it, and understanding it. Fiqh. So he calls the ones who memorize qurra, whereas he calls the ones who have proper and deep understanding, he calls them fuqaha. That's the difference. So this shows that at the time of the Prophet ﷺ and the companions, the word fiqh was meant exclusively for knowledge of Islam. So now the meaning of the word fiqh changed, and now it was sort of a consensus. It means understanding of Islam, understanding, deeper understanding. And this is why, like I can't remember the name of one of the tabi'een, or even later on, atba' tabi'een. Actually it was Abu Hanifa. One of the narrators of hadith came to him and he said, you don't have much hadith. You don't have much hadith. So he was challenging Abu Hanifa. By the way, Abu Hanifa rahimahullah was a very, 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 very intelligent man. Extremely intelligent man. So the man came to him and said, you don't have much hadith, I have hadith more than you. So he says, you're right, you have more hadith. But from one hadith, I can extract so many benefits that you have no clue about. Give me one hadith and I will show you fiqh from it that you never thought of. So he actually gave Imam Abu Hanifa a hadith, and Imam Abu Hanifa extracted many fiqhi rulings from that hadith. And the narrator of the hadith was like baffled. So he said, I will do the memorization and you will do the explanation and the deduction. So you deduce and you extract the rulings from the hadith. So that shows the meaning of the statement of the Prophet ﷺ. How often someone carries a fiqh but he doesn't understand it, but he takes it to someone who has more understanding of it. That's fiqh. So that's fiqh at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. So it's not limited to application. It's not limited, for example, to the etiquettes of salah or the rulings pertaining to salah. No. Aqeedah, knowledge, akhlaq, knowledge about patience, about generosity, about all of these was fiqh, was named fiqh. Tafsir was called fiqh. Tafsir was called fiqh. Everything about Islam, about the Qur'an and the Sunnah was called fiqh. Later on, and we'll see this will be more towards the when the Khilafah Umayyah started to grow, and like towards the end of it, around 150 years after the death of the Prophet ﷺ, or after the hijrah of the Prophet ﷺ, around that stage, the word fiqh became more used. The general usage was leaning more towards what we call fiqh today, the applications, which are the fiqhi rulings that pertain to specific issues, the al-ahkam al-amaliyya, the practical rulings about what to do, halal, haram, okay, mandub, makruh, okay, wajib. These are the rulings, okay. Fiqh became more used to that. After that, it was more systematically used in that sense until today. So fiqh until today. Now this is the later usage in the history of the Muslim Ummah of fiqh. There was specifically one discipline which we call fiqh today, and we know these as the books of fiqh. So you have the books of fiqh have usually two sections: ibadat, acts of worship, and mu'amalat, dealings and other transactions. Usually these are so the word fiqh became more technical. I want to quote a statement from Shaykh Umar al-Ashqar, may Allah have mercy on him. And it's a profound word, just to show you what the word. He talks about the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, the hadith from Abu Dawood, about how often someone carries a fiqh, but he's not a faqih. He doesn't understand it, he doesn't comprehend it. He says this hadith shows that the faqih, who's the person of fiqh, is someone who has insight in matters of the deen. Insight. Look at the words. Insight in matters of the deen. Who has a penetrating understanding of the meanings of the texts. Such a person is thus able to arrive at the rulings, benefits, and lessons contained in the text. Then he explains, Shaykh Umar al-Ashqar explains that faqih is someone who is more able and more capable to infer the intent of Allah and His Messenger ﷺ that lie behind the rulings and legislations. There are wisdoms, there are purposes behind legislations. And this is the faqih who can understand them. It's a faqih who can understand them. Okay. Now, in order to explain as well fiqh, to clarify what fiqh, taking from what Brother Wasiyullah said about fiqh, it's a human effort. We need to establish the difference, and I believe Dr. Bilal Phillips makes the difference here. He mentions, I believe, 3 or 4 points, the difference between fiqh and sharia. Fiqh and sharia, okay? The points he mentions are good, but they are not enough. So we will add to them. And by the way, I'm preparing some notes, so, and it's good. We need to communicate somehow, and preferably online, where I can send you some stuff and get probably your questions. I can send you the notes. I can get your questions. I can update you in about certain homeworks. So what would be the best medium? I'm not very good with all these.
Email with already.
Email. All of you put their emails on the list. Everyone. Okay. So please make sure on the attendance sheet that you put your email, so at least we can send you that. Is email the ideal? So let's not stop with. Let's take another opinion. Wasiyullah, what do you have?
So it's an app that most people won't have. It's called Slack.
Slack.
Yeah, it's more like for teams, and you can send documents, and there's different channels for different discussions, etc. So it's really it has a lot of features that we really.
The problem is that I think a lot of people use their PC or laptop. So a lot of people use their laptop or desktop So that could be
It's on
that.
desktop and it's on cell phone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a big stride. I'm not sure if everyone is willing to take that step. I would prefer something like this. I personally would prefer something like this, but I'm not sure if some people seem to be puzzled and a little bit scared.
Yes.
Right? Okay, at least for the time being, please make sure you write your email on the list, so inshallah I can send the notes to you, and I can update you on anything. And just in case sometimes, like, the class is cancelled for any emergency, at least I can notify you. I know some people drive from far, so at least we need a good communication. So the difference between, it's good to establish a difference between what we call Sharia, and this is very helpful. This kind of understanding is very helpful. The difference between Sharia and Fiqh. Sharia and Fiqh. First of all, Sharia is divine. Sharia is from Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, for example, in Surah Al-Jathiyah, He says, ثُمَّ جَعَلْنَاكَ عَلَى شَرِيعَةٍ مِنَ الْأَمْرِ فَاتَّبِعْهَا. Then we made you upon a sharia, a way, a straight path to follow. على شريعة من الأمر, on a straight path to follow. So follow it. Stay on it. Sharia. So Sharia is from Allah. Sharia is from Allah. Divine. Fiqh is, as Rasulullah said, human effort. It's a human effort. So what's the difference? Sharia is the principles, the general guidance that you have in the Qur'an and the Sunnah. And also the Aqeedah is part of Sharia. The Akhlaq are part of Sharia. So Sharia is the way of Islam, the general way of Islam, and it's contained as principles and general guidance and principles in the Qur'an and the Sunnah. The Sharia is perfect, infallible. It's in a sense, okay, I'm giving this analogy, although it's not perfect, but it helps us understand it. Sharia is more like a constitution. It's more like a constitution. It's general principles. It's unquestionable. It's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sharia is perfect. Fiqh is more of the law. Now we moved on to use fiqh for the technical sense, right? The technical sense that came later on. So we will use fiqh about the exact rulings of worship and dealings that are based on evidence from the Qur'an and the Sunnah. So we use fiqh now in the technical sense. So Sharia is more like the constitution, whereas fiqh is more like the law and the interpretation. So the fiqh is the human effort to understand the Sharia and see how it applies to specific situations. Is this clear? See the difference? So Sharia is divine. There's nothing wrong about it. It's perfect, infallible. It's divine. It's from Allah. It's unchangeable. Sharia doesn't change. But fiqh could change. Fiqh could change. Alhamdulillah. Fiqh could change. For example, the Prophet ﷺ, that someone came to him and he said, "Can I kiss my wife during the days of Ramadan, during the day?" The Prophet ﷺ said, "No." Another man came to the Prophet ﷺ and he said, "Can I kiss my wife during the days of Ramadan?" He said, "Yes." Somebody asked the Prophet ﷺ, he said, one person he said no, another person he said yes. The Prophet ﷺ said yes. That one, the one I said no to, he's a young man. So usually young men are less able to control themselves. So he might fall into having an affair with his wife or a relationship with his wife, and that means he gets in trouble because there's a kafara, there's an expiation, a huge expiation. It's difficult. But the other one is an old man and he seems to be able to control himself. Doesn't seem to be so physically powerful or strong, so he's more able to control himself. So That was the Prophet's assessment. So the fatwa changed. The fatwa changed. So things do change based on the circumstances. Sometimes people blame scholars. They say, for example, when satellite channels, began in the 90s, the scholars said that's haram. You bring it to your house, you have violated the rights of your family, and you will be that's basically you're risking your eternal life in the hellfire. Like literally, if you read their fatwa today, you're gonna say, now where did these guys live in? No, but actually they lived in their time. It's a different time, because when the very early channels, like a lot of them were evil, some of them were evil, like only had pornography. And there was a huge violation against like the culture of the Muslims and the religious affairs of the Muslims. So these things, like these channels, displayed content that was in sharp violation of the way of life of Muslims at that early time, the very first few years. So some people were making fun of these scholars. Look what they talk about, like satellite channels. Yeah, but they were talking to their time. But now when things changed, the scholars themselves have satellite channels. They're all on satellite channels, aren't they? A lot of the satellite channels have a lot of these scholars who used to say it's haram. Now they appear on satellite channels. Did it change? Well, yes, because the situation changed. So that's fiqh. That's fiqh. Not all of fiqh is changeable. There are certain things that are fixed. Like for example, in the salah, what is for example, the pillars of salah standing in the salah, reciting al-Fatiha, that doesn't change. That doesn't change, you have to do it. It changes in certain circumstances when you can't stand up. Okay, you pray while you're seated. That's fine. But generally speaking, there are things that are fixed and there are things that are changeable. So again, some of the differences, Sharia is complete and perfect. Fiqh is incomplete. It keeps evolving because it responds to the demands, it responds to the situations, it responds to new conditions. It gives solutions. Like at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, there was no credit cards. So you can't get a hadith about credit cards, whether they halal or haram. So we know what's haram, we know what's halal. In Sharia, riba is haram. What do the fuqaha do in fiqh? They see what transactions fall under riba, so they say that's haram. They see what transactions do not fall under riba, and they're okay. They say, okay, this falls under the halal. That's the fiqh. Whereas the Sharia is riba is haram. That's it. Because it's an abuse of people's rights and an exploitation. Okay, Sharia is binding. Sharia is binding. You have to follow the Sharia of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Justice is justice. What's halal is halal, what's haram is haram. What's ethical is ethical. You have to believe in this, you have to believe in this. But fiqh is not necessarily binding. Like there's an opinion, and this great scholar, and I respect him and I learn from him, but his opinion is not binding on me. If I see the truth with another opinion, and I see it more in line with the Sharia and more in line with the text, I follow the other opinion. So this Imam's opinion is not binding on me. In that sense, fiqh is not necessarily binding. But there are things that the whole ummah agreed upon, that's binding. There are things that are known by necessity in Islam, there's no dispute about them. It's so obvious. Like praying 5 times a day. That's binding on everyone. There's no one, you can't say, I follow another opinion. Another opinion is out of the fold of Islam. Sharia is universal and not bound by time. It's timeless. It's not bound by time. Sharia is all the same. At the time of the Prophet ﷺ, at these times, till the end of times, Sharia is Sharia. It doesn't change. Principles of Islam never change. Aqidah doesn't change. The principles of fiqh never change. It's the same. What's haram is haram, what's halal is halal. But fiqh is time bound. Fiqh is time bound. So for example, in Sharia, intoxicants are haram. Sharia. in fiqh, is this drink considered to be intoxicant or not? So is it, okay, this drink, is it halal or haram? That's what fiqh is, the reasoning that the scholars use to implement the principle of Sharia on this specific issue. It became fiqh now. Okay, so this is general, and this is actually a very good thing to show that, and I will close with this. So the homework is read the book till page 45, and I asked you to make a summary. Next time I will ask some of you to read the summaries. Make a summary of like no more than 10 lines for these 45. So 5 lines for each 20 pages. 5 lines for each 20 pages, maximum. Even if it's bullet points, whatever you're comfortable with. So just understanding the difference between fiqh and sharia is very helpful. Because some people approach the fiqh of their shaykh or their teacher or their madhab as sharia. They want you to abide by it. They say, that's the truth, you have to follow it. They don't realize there's a difference between sharia as it is, as principles, as general rulings, as general guidance, as a divine guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the fiqh, which is the reasoning, the ijtihad that the scholars have used through their insight, through their fiqh, in order to arrive at these rulings. These rulings are human effort. These rulings are human effort. These are not divine. These are not divine. So we have to understand the difference. It helps us understand that, because some people try to push their own understanding or the opinion of their own shaykh, and if you violate it, they say, you violated the hadith. No, but I don't agree with this understanding of the hadith. I don't agree that this hadith applies there. And there are other scholars that tell you otherwise. And they have a very good point here. So, and the famous example, which I'll keep bringing up again and again, inshaAllah, is from the companions of the Prophet ﷺ. After the Ghazwat al-Khandaq, Battle of the Trench, the Prophet ﷺ said, لا يصلين أحدكم العصر إلا في بني قريظة. No one pray Asr except in Bani Qurayza. Some companions prayed on the way before reaching Bani Qurayza. The other one said, no, the Prophet ﷺ said, don't pray until you reach Bani Qurayza. We're only going to pray there. It was Maghrib. Time has passed. None of them blamed the other. The Prophet ﷺ did not blame any of them. He was okay with both. Why? Because the advice or the statement of the Prophet ﷺ was Sharia, right? How they understood it and implemented it, that was fiqh. And fiqh, there is space. There is space, there is leeway and enough wiggle room for this kind of differences. So once we understand this, it's easier for us to relate to issues and ikhtilaf of fiqh. So that doesn't mean Sharia is contradictory. No, that means Allah left that room for people to reason and find the best solution for the situations. Because if people were to abide by one understanding, it would come to points where it's almost impossible to implement. And this also to keep the ummah engaged in its own affairs, in its own situations. Related, they always keep aware of their sharia, the sharia that Allah gave them, and take it as their source of finding guidance for their life. So they're relevant to the sharia and they're relevant to their times, and they're still involved, and they're still using their logic and their reasoning and their effort in order to implement the rulings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, striving for this. And this is a means for people to enter Jannah. So this is basically today. Questions, I will deal with questions inshallah later on. With this kind of questions, I hope you can send them to my email address, which is imam@abuhuraira.org. Some questions cannot be answered in public because there are specific issues with them. So they need to be explained in private. Barakallahu feekum. Inshallah next time I'll give more time for questions and more discussions. But this is just the beginning. And these are the foundations. Barakallahu feekum wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.